One drunken mistake with his best friend made my husband say something I'll never forget. Hello, my name is Anna, and I was in a 5-year marriage with my husband I loved so much. We had what everyone called a picture-perfect marriage: 2 children, a beautiful house, and a love that every couple wanted most of the time. My husband, Mike, was everything a partner should be: hardworking, trustworthy, obedient, compassionate, and dependable. I stepped into realization that I was the luckiest woman alive to have him at my side. But one night, one stupid, careless night, I threw it all away. I didn't plan it, and I didn't think I was capable of something so awful. Yet it happened, and now I'm left with nothing but regret. It all began with a party, a get-together party which any normal person can go through without a hitch. I decided to let loose that night. I got drunk, and my decision-making ability was gone. I mean, by the time I woke up the next morning, everything in my life had changed. I lost everything precious to me that night. I betrayed Mike in the worst way imaginable, and every day since has been a living nightmare. I wish I could go back and undo everything, but I can't. Now I'm left wondering if my life will ever be the same again. Please bear with me while I empty my heart out here. Although Mike and I did not go to college together, we met during college. It was not a great dramatic love kind of situation, but a normal event that happened during a normal day at the university campus when he was kind enough to help me find a book. Right from the start, he was polite, caring, and selfless, a true gentleman. We started dating within a few months, and it seemed right, like we were meant to be together. Mike gave me the impression that he would constantly be there to protect me in whatever happened. People instinctively trusted him because he was that kind of man. He was a revered guy because of his calming manner, strong ethics, and endearing grin. I couldn't have imagined that someone like him would want to be with me. Shortly after graduating from college, we were married, but because we only invited people we were close to, it wasn't a big ceremony. And it was a day of happiness, one that reminded me of brighter days to come. Our married life began without much fuss, and we bought a small house which we both liked. Mike used all his efforts to support himself and us, and make sure I lacked nothing. I decided to be a housewife when we had our first child. It was a mutual decision. Our marriage was built on trust and respect. We supported each other in everything, from career goals to personal struggles. Mike was my rock. He never once complained or showed signs of weakness when life threw us a curveball. He was the kind of spouse that would make me coffee in the morning, remember significant dates, and leave me small messages of affection to find out about during the day. For years, it seemed like it was a dream that we are actually living. We were blessed with 2 wonderful children, a boy and a girl. Saturdays and Sundays were spent at the park, playing different games or watching movies together on a couch. Mike is the best father I have ever seen, patient, playful, and very devoted to our children. But as the years went by, life got busier and busier. I was left in charge of handling the responsibilities of taking care of the kids and maintaining the house, as Mike's job demanded more and more hours. The never-ending cycle of earning a living, managing the house, and raising the children left us with little time for each other. Our conversations become less emotional and more focused on everyday problems. In retrospect, it may be seen that the beginning of the cracks in the relationship occurred at this time. It was timid at best. People did not even pay attention, but they were there. If it was a date night, we no longer went out, and we scarcely spent quality time discussing issues aside from childcare or financial issues. Neither of us probably knew just how much we were growing apart from each other. Mike, as incredible as he was, didn't always express his emotions openly. He carried the weight of providing for the family silently, never burdening me with his stress. I, on the other hand, started to feel lonely. I missed the deep connection we once had, the way we used to laugh and dream together. But instead of addressing those feelings, I buried them, convincing myself that this was just how marriage worked after a few years. Sometimes I felt angry with Mike for seeing each other so rarely. He was supposed to make efforts. He thought that his only duty was to provide for the family, and that's it. But I wanted more from him, and he never understood that. We got into a mundane, boring routine that was more of sharing an apartment with no feeling toward one another. As the distance grew, I began to doubt Mike's love for us. Though he still dropped everything to be there when I needed him, something felt different. He continued to say, "I love you," before bed every night and kiss me good morning each day, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I just didn't know how to fix it. If only I could say that I sought ways to restore the closeness, ways to return to our normalcy. But the truth is, I didn't. I allowed the loneliness to grow, and rather than seeking comfort in Mike, I pulled away. So I kept reassuring myself that one day we will make up and come back together, that these are just a few differences that we need to overcome. I mean, where else was he going to go? I often took Mike for granted, and I hate to admit it now. He was going to be there, sturdy and firm, I assumed, no matter what. The night that ruined everything started off so ordinary. It was a friend's birthday party, just a casual gathering at their house. Mike and I had been invited weeks in advance, and I had agreed without much thought. It was the first time in a long while that we'd had a chance to go out together without the kids. But something came up at the last minute. A work emergency, and Mike couldn't go, but he told me that if I wanted, I can go. The sitter was already arranged. I thought it might be a good way to shake off some of the stress. The house was packed with familiar faces, laughter echoing through every corner, and the faint smell of barbecue in the air. I was burdened by the stress of being a parent, the monotony of my daily schedule, and the emotional gap between Mike and myself and I went straight towards the booze. I remember pouring myself a glass of wine. One became two. As well as before I recognized it, I couldn't remember. Even though I don't drink much, something inside of me exploded that night. At first it was thrilling, as if I was letting go of all the worries and concerns that usually consumed me. Mike's best friend, Brian, also attended the party. He had always been good-looking, and no matter the occasion, he had a way of capturing my attention. Brian had been a part of our lives, a laid-back presence who brought joy to others. His bond with Mike was unshakable, someone you could always rely on. There's no point of lying now. I always had thoughts about Brian, which I knew were completely inappropriate, but I just couldn't help thinking how it would feel to kiss him or sit on his lap. That night I talked with Brian for longer than usual since I was drunk. He listened to me while asking questions and making hilarious comments, which gave me an intense feeling of understanding that I had not felt with my husband in a long time. I didn't even realize what mess I was creating since I was so drunk, but I think part of me knew what I was doing. The alcohol just gave me the courage to do it. I can't remember exactly how it happened. The details of that night are a blur, flashes of laughter and music blending together in a haze. I remember Brian handing me another drink, his hand brushing mine for a moment too long. I remember him complimenting me in a way that made my heart race, even though I knew it shouldn't. I followed Brian into the room without thinking. He didn't ask to stop, and I didn't stop myself. It just happened, like I was on autopilot. The alcohol had blurred my judgment, numbing the voice in my head that should have told me to turn around. The rest is a haze, flashes of a night I can't fully piece together, yet I feel the weight of it every single day. There was no love in it, no meaning, just chaos. Even drunk, I knew it was wrong, but it felt too good to stop. I was betraying Mike, the man who had given me everything, and yet I didn't stop. I let loneliness and alcohol take control, leading me to the worst mistake of my life. The next day when I woke up, the realization of what I had done hit me in the face. Body aches and a pounding headache couldn't compare to the awful sensation in my chest. When I opened my eyes, I saw Brian sleeping next to me, his face turned away, which made my stomach turn. Panic set in immediately. I couldn't let Mike find out about this. I needed him. Hell, I didn't even make the bare minimum to survive on my own. I had to get out of the room, so I quickly gathered my clothes before leaving. As I walked out of the room, my mind was full of thoughts, each one showing me bits of what had just happened. I hadn't expected things to turn out this way. I never thought it would go so wrong. I could still feel everything from before, the way it had felt so right in the moment. But now, standing alone, I saw the truth. This was my fault. I let it happen. And now it is over. I wished I could go back, even just once. I knew I couldn't. But that didn't stop me from wanting it again. As I walked inside, Mike was occupied with his morning drink. I wanted to hug him close because I felt compelled to tell him everything, but I was unable to do so because of my private jail. I knew he would experience heartbreak and severe disappointment, so I decided to save him from the pain. It was just the beginning of what could have been one of the most awful times of my life, which began after the party. I felt like someone else as I went into the kitchen pretending to be focused on preparing breakfast. I was terrified that Mike would notice the treachery that seemed to be engraved on my face. My gut roiled with guilt every time he looked at me, but I forced myself to be myself and smile. It was a mistake, I told myself, and I could continue without him ever finding out. However, I couldn't handle the remorse I felt for what I had done. Every time Mike asked me concerning how things were or smiled at me, I felt like I had been stabbed. I couldn't help but think about Brian and the longing for the night again. At first, Mike didn't appear to notice anything. I wasn't the same wife, but he remained the same patient and kind husband that he had been throughout his life. I brushed off his attempts at closeness, avoided making eye contact, and started spending more time by myself. I convinced myself that it would have been simpler to conceal my true identity if I stayed away. However, Mike was perceptive and quickly sensed that something was off. He started asking me whether I was all right and if I had any thoughts. I would quickly brush off his question by claiming that it was due to headaches or exhaustion. However, I could see the doubt growing in his eyes. My paranoia only made things worse. I realized that I was overanalyzing every little thing out of concern that Mike may somehow figure out what I was thinking. I panicked out every time my phone rang, thinking it was Brian or one of the other party pals. In an effort to conceal the truth, I was removing messages, avoiding particular associations, and altering some of my routines. But even when you attempt to keep secrets to yourself, they seem to come out. It started with nausea. At first, I thought it was just something I ate, but then it kept happening. Early in the morning, late at night. Then I realized I hadn't gotten my period. I counted the days. It was late. Too late. I told myself it was nothing, just stress. But deep down, I knew. At the grocery store, I grabbed a test and tossed it in the cart under a pile of other things, hoping my kids would notice. I avoided eye contact with the cashier, paid, and went straight home. I took the test in the bathroom, my hands shaking, even though I already knew what the result would be. I waited, staring at the wall, my heart pounding, and then there it was. 2 pink lines. Pregnant. And it wasn't Mike's. I hadn't touched him in months. I was pregnant with my husband's best friend's child. A few days passed, but the weight of it didn't lift. If anything, it got worse. Every second, I felt it pressing down on me, clawing at my skin. I could barely look at Mike without feeling like I was going to throw up, not from the pregnancy, but from the guilt. He noticed. Of course he did. He wasn't the kind of guy you could fool. "You've been weird lately," he said over dinner one night, his voice casual, but his eyes sharp, watching me. "Just tired," I muttered, barely touching my food. He didn't buy it. He didn't push either. He just stared, jaw tight, before going back to eating. But I knew him. He was filing it away, adding it to a growing list of things that didn't sit right. I told myself I had time to figure things out, time to think, to get rid of the test, to come up with some kind of plan. But I was careless. I had shoved the damn thing in my purse in a panic, planning to throw it away later. Then I forgot. And just like that, my time ran out. It happened that night. I was lying in bed, my back to Mike, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. He wasn't asleep. I could feel it. The way his breathing wasn't deep or steady. The way he moved just enough for me to notice. Then I heard it. The soft rustle of my purse. My body went stiff. More rustling. A pause. And then silence. The kind of silence that makes your stomach drop, that makes the air feel too thick to breathe. I squeezed my eyes shut. Maybe if I stayed still, if I didn't move, I could pretend this wasn't happening. Then his voice. Low. Cold. Right behind me. "What the hell is this?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Slowly I turned over. He was standing beside the bed, the pregnancy test in his hand. He had pulled the cap off. The 2 pink lines stared back at me, clear as day, like a neon sign screaming liar in my face. I felt sick. My mouth went dry. My hands felt numb. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Mike let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "You want to explain this to me, or should I do the math myself?" Mike dash. "Don't." His voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. His fingers curled around the test like he was about to snap it in half. "Just tell me one thing." He leaned in, so close I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching, his chest rising and falling like he was holding something dangerous inside. His eyes locked onto mine, and when he spoke again, His voice was quieter, steadier. Who's the father? My mouth opened, but my mind was already working, already twisting. And then, just like that, I felt the anger rise in my chest. Not real anger, but the kind I knew how to use. The kind that could flip a situation, make the other person second-guess themselves. I sat up fast, throwing the covers off, acting like I was outraged, like I was disgusted that he would even suggest such a thing. I scoffed, shook my head, let out this sharp, bitter laugh, like I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him he was insane for accusing me, that it was his. Who else could it be? Did he even hear himself? But he didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He just stood there staring at me, so still it made my skin crawl. Then the corner of his mouth lifted just slightly, and I knew. He wasn't buying it. And then he laughed. Not a real laugh. Not an angry one either. It was slow, quiet, full of something I couldn't quite place, and it made my stomach twist. He told me I must think he was an idiot. I rolled my eyes, crossed my arms, threw more attitude his way, told him he was acting like one. I played my part. I was good at this. I had always been good at this. But then he leaned in, just enough to make me shift back against the pillows. He never touched me. He didn't have to. His voice was enough. He said he knew, that he hadn't touched me in months, that I needed to stop lying and tell him whose baby I was carrying. And then, his voice got lower, colder. He told me if I didn't tell him the truth, I wouldn't like what happened next. For a second, I almost laughed. Almost asked him what he thought he was going to do. But then I saw his face, the way his smirk had faded, the way his eyes had hardened. And that's when I knew. He wasn't bluffing. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, staring at him like I wasn't scared, like I wasn't feeling the ground shake under me. I wasn't going to give him what he wanted. He could threaten, he could demand, but I wasn't going to say his name. And that pissed him off. His hands curled into fists at his sides, his chest rising and falling like he was forcing himself to stay in control. He shook his head, scoffing like he couldn't believe me, like I was the lowest thing he'd ever seen. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. He was gone. But where? To do what? I fidgeted, picking at my nails, chewing the inside of my cheek, my mind racing with possibilities. Was he going to find him? Was he going to make a scene? Was he going to come back even angrier? I had no answers, and eventually exhaustion took over. I must have fallen asleep like that, sitting up in bed, still fully dressed, my purse next to me. When I woke up, the house was silent. I grabbed my phone, still half asleep, and that's when I saw it. A text from Mike. Be gone by the evening. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting, but it got worse as I kept reading. You disgust me. I can't even look at you. Be out of the house before I get back. The kids are staying. My lawyers already have the papers ready. If you want your little secret to stay hidden, don't contest custody. My whole body went cold. He meant it. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't a warning. This was a decision, a statement, a final nail in the coffin. And just like that, I knew. I had lost everything. I packed everything through blurry vision, tears slipping down my face no matter how much I tried to stop them. My hands were shaking as I shoved clothes into a suitcase, not even knowing where I was going. Every few minutes I had to stop and press my palms against my face, trying to breathe, trying to keep myself from completely breaking down. I told the kids I'd be gone for a few days, that Daddy would take care of them. I smiled, acted normal, hugged them tighter than usual. They were too young to question it, too innocent to understand what was really happening. And God, did that make it worse? Once they were settled, I stepped outside, gripping my phone like it was my lifeline. I called Brian. No answer. I called again. And again. By the fifth call, the number was blocked. Then a text popped up. Don't call me again. Your husband showed up. He knows. I stared at the screen, barely breathing, before I forced myself to keep reading. He punched me. Hard. And now my girlfriend knows too. She's done with me. I lost everything because of you. Don't contact me again. My fingers trembled as I tried to call him again, but it went straight to voicemail. Blocked. I sucked in a sharp breath, my pulse racing. Everything was falling apart. No, not falling, crumbling, burning down to nothing, leaving me with no way out. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, my card declined when I stopped to get gas. I tried again. Same result. A pit formed in my stomach. I quickly opened my banking app, my fingers moving fast, desperate, only to see the joint account completely drained. Every last cent was gone. The credit cards? Blocked. Mike had cut me off. I clenched my jaw, blinking hard, refusing to let the panic take over. I didn't have time for that. I needed money, so I did the one thing I swore I wouldn't do. I called him. It rang twice before he picked up, and when he did, I barely got a word out before he laughed. A real, deep laugh. "Let me guess," he said, voice dripping with amusement. "You're not calling for forgiveness, are you? You're calling for money." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Mike, please." He cut me off, his voice turning cold. "You really are something else." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. "How did you find out?" Maybe, just maybe, if I could figure out how, I could spin this. I could twist things, make him see it wasn't as bad as he thought. I could manipulate my way out of this, just like always, but he wasn't playing my game anymore. "I knew something was off that night," he said, his voice dangerously steady, so I asked around. "And guess what? Turns out someone saw you." He let out a breath, sharp and slow, like he was savoring the moment. "They saw you walk into that room with Brian." My stomach dropped. He had put the pieces together, and before I could say anything, before I could twist it, flip it, try to turn it back on him, he hung up, blocked me. And just like that, I had nothing. Update. Sitting here in this cramped, lifeless apartment, I can't help but feel like I got the short end of the stick. I mean, yes, I made a mistake, but was it really worth losing everything over? Was one night enough to completely erase all the years I spent as Mike's wife, the mother of his children? He threw me out like I was nothing, like I didn't exist. The silence is unbearable. No laughter from the kids, no sound of Mike moving around the house, no shared life, just me, alone, working a dead-end job that barely covers rent because, of course, I didn't get a dime from the divorce. Turns out cheating voids alimony, and Mike made damn sure that clause was in the paperwork. His lawyers had me backed into a corner before I could even argue. Not that I had the energy to fight. He took everything. The house, the savings, the cars. Left me with nothing but my clothes and the shame of being the woman who threw it all away. And the worst part? The kids. He didn't just take them. He made sure they didn't want to see me. I see it in their eyes when I visit. The way they hesitate, the way they don't run to me the way they used to. Mike has been poisoning them against me, I know it, and I can't do anything about it. I tried to find a better job, but no one wants to hire a woman who's pregnant and alone. So I settled for something small, a retail job that barely pays minimum wage. No maternity leave, of course. I can't afford to take time off, so I work through the sickness, through the exhaustion, through everything. The customers don't care. The manager doesn't care. And Brian, gone. I reached out once, just once. And he ignored me, like I was some burden, some mistake he wanted to erase from his life, as if he didn't ruin mine. Mike won. He got everything. His life, his money, his kids, his freedom. And I got stuck with this. A pathetic excuse for a home, a baby I never planned for, and a life that feels like a punishment. And yet, I still catch myself thinking that maybe he'll forgive me. That one day, he'll see how much I've suffered and realize I've paid the price. Maybe he'll soften. Maybe he'll let me back in, even just a little. But knowing Mike, he won't. He made it clear that I disgust him, that he wants nothing to do with me, and if I try to fight for the kids, he'll drag my name through the mud until I don't even have that left. So I wait. I suffer. And I wonder how much longer I can keep going like this. Update. I don't know why I expected anything different. Maybe some part of me thought time would soften things, that Mike would eventually stop hating me, that my kids would remember who I was to them. But no. If anything, it's gotten worse. They avoid me like the plague. At first, they were just distant, awkward. But now, they barely look at me. When I call, they make excuses. When I visit, they stay close to Mike or his new fiancé. Yeah, new fiancé. Mike moved on. Of course he did. He always had everything fall into place for him. He's happy while I'm here, rotting in this miserable excuse for a life. And the worst part? My own daughter helped pick the ring. She was so excited, so happy to have a new mommy. I almost dropped my phone when I heard that. I thought maybe I had misheard, that she didn't mean it like that. But no, she was serious. She doesn't even want to call me mommy anymore. That was the moment it really hit me. I'm being erased. Mike is replacing me. And my kids? They're letting him. They're happy about it. And for what? One mistake? One night? That's all it took for everything I did to mean nothing? I was a good wife. I was a good mother. I gave them years of my life, and now I'm supposed to just accept this? I don't think I did anything wrong enough to deserve this kind of suffering. One night doesn't erase everything I was, everything I did, but here I am, alone, forgotten, watching my life get handed to someone else like I was never part of it in the first place. That's my story, Reddit. I had no one to share what happened with me except this platform. Thank you for listening.